Hello, everyone. Welcome to this part 23, 24 of, I don't remember the number, of our Seeking Harmony Live discussion. We're very happy to be with you. And yeah, tonight we are going to talk about several topics, but I think one of the most important news of the past few days, especially like the United States, is the Brittany Griner story and how the United States and Russia are negotiating to exchange some prisoners. Yeah, so I feel like it's an important topic to begin with. And yeah, Sage, would you like to update us on some of the information that you found about it?
Yeah, I guess yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, or just to fill in any informational gaps or whatever. Yeah, so Brittany Griner, she plays in the off season of basketball in the United States when she plays with the Phoenix Mercury. She plays in Russian leagues, and so she would regularly go to Russia. And she arrived in, I think it was January or February, and she had small amount of, vape cartridges that had some THC in them, which is, a marijuana product. And Russia, as I was told when I went over there as a study abroad student, everyone was like, do not do anything regarding drugs in Russia. They are absolutely unmerciless when charging for drugs, and it's very true. And so it's not an exception. And, at the airport, the officials detained her. She said that they asked her to sign some documents and she didn't fully understand them, because obviously they weren't Russian. And they detained her and they've had her in jail since, and she's on trial, currently for drug trafficking, for bringing that, small amount of THC oil into Russia. And so that's her situation. Russia is considering, U.S. has offered for prisoner swap. There's also Paul Whelan, who is a former Marine. He was discharged on bad conduct from the Marines after serving in Iraq on charges of theft from the military. And he also, he has 4 citizenships. And so there's an element to which, Russia is kind of playing on the suspicion or, about someone having 4 nationalities, which definitely happens. And he's been detained since 2019. And the Trump administration was not intent on doing anything about it. So they're trying to do a prisoner swap with Whelan and Brittany Griner, in exchange for Victor Bout, who is a Russian arms dealer. And he has been, responsible for arming mainly rebel groups and insurgents, mainly in Africa and in the Middle East. And, I believe he was apprehended in Thailand, so probably Southeast Asia too. So this guy has been an arms trafficker, and the U.S. is wanting to swap him for those 2, Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner. And Russia's requesting that another person be swapped as well, who is an assassin in Russia's employ. So it's definitely yeah, that's the situation. I'll just leave it at that. And then we can discuss like the implications of it and how, what people are saying about it. Is this like irresponsible for the US to be doing this? What are the implications of it? And what are the reasons for it being conducted in the way that it's being conducted? So yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for all of that. Like,
Yeah.
it makes the situation clearer for me, because I was I was unaddicted about like all the details from like a few months back.
Yeah.
It's very fresh for me. And so, yeah, what I feel is that in this situation, I think like for France having had a few like diplomatic prisoners throughout the years, I don't think it's an unusual negotiation. What's unusual about it is that it's public,
Yeah.
And so the fact that it's public is kind of shocking to some people, and media are talking about it a lot, even going as far as saying that it's a weak move
Yeah.
from the US, and yeah, basically that it's a weak move. And there are a lot about that, and I'm not quite sure, because not sure at all, because like it's something that it's done so often that I couldn't think that in an administration like that someone would do something like that without having like a lot of thought behind it. And
Yeah.
the other thing is that it's like as if Brittany Griner has gained the status of like diplomatic prisoner, and basically it's kind of, I don't want to say unheard of, but usually it's kind of like ex-military journalists, and yeah, it's unusual, and obviously she's detained for reasons that seem a bit like abusive, like drug trafficking. But yeah, so there's a lot to this situation, and I want to know like what do you guys feel about that, because it's very unusual, is what I'm feeling. Did you feel like you're thinking about something?
Yeah, I'm thinking on it, but I mean, I've never heard of transferring prisoners before. It sounds like something that happens in like hand. Excuse, pardon my ignorance, but it sounds like something that has happened in Handmaid's Tales. You know, so that's the first time I'm hearing actually in real life of
Yeah.
prison. So I can't speak on it. So it's new to me.
Yeah, I think the thing about what it feels like to me is that normally in this kind of like prisoner swap hostage negotiation, which is what they're calling it and what it feels like, they wouldn't want to disclose their hand too early, or they wouldn't want to like no government would want to publicly disclose plans, because it could rouse public opposition and be unsavory. And it is rousing a lot of public opposition from people, mainly in the United States. I feel, I can't say for certain, but a lot of what I've read has been from more of like a Republican standpoint, or like a right wing or conservative. And so, people objecting to like swapping like a convicted arms dealer who would have put Americans in danger through arming rebel groups, or swapping like, convicted murderer, the other person who Russia's asking for, for a US civilian. And, unfortunately, there's quite an element of, there's an element of animosity toward Brittany Griner on the part of, some Americans who say like, well, she disrespects America because she was someone who like doesn't stand for the national anthem. Like I think at least on one occasion, was doing that in protest in America because, some American athletes, particularly, African Americans kneel, during the national anthem when it's played in a sports stadium because of protesting like, police brutality and systemic racism in America. So some people who I've seen in comment sections, which I will go through to get a temperature on public opinion and what's going on, object to that. And they're like, oh, she disrespected America and she doesn't want it. America, blah, 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 all of this. And what I feel is that why would President Biden disclose something like that when he knows that, Republicans, not all Republicans, but some, and some conservatives who have a lot of animosity there, particularly like, racism, racial animosity that they don't talk about, but it's pretty obvious in this case, that why would you mention that? Because the people who you're angering don't vote for you. They wouldn't vote for you anyway. And that's what we're kind of wondering, because it's sensitive, this kind of thing, and public opinion could really be inflamed if you're announcing it way early. This is the deal that we could have. Yeah, so that's something that seems, something that feels like it's in play here. Yeah,
Yeah, I like that you brought this up and explained a little bit about like the people that would oppose her and why they would oppose her, because I think it confirms what we were talking about in the chat with Jeff, that it was a political and communication move to cater to the Black people vote, which is something that in my mind, because I'm not from this country, I don't understand, but like seeing how you painted all the picture of all of it and why people would like support her or oppose her, it would make sense, And so, yeah, and it would even make more sense to see that some of the media, maybe it was even like white people writing this that didn't understand that she would cater to the Black vote, would write something to cater to those who opposed her and voice this opinion of those who opposed her, for like kneeling and doing all these things during this era of like Caperton. Kneeling.
what would you say?
Wait, what?
Caperton, like, is it his name, like the football player?
Oh, Colin?
Clapper. Oh,
Colin Kaepernick?
Kaepernick.
Oh,
Wow.
Kaepernick, yes.
Sorry.
I said,
No,
what?
it's
Wow. I completely
Colin.
I forgot his name.
I
Colin
forgot.
Kaepernick.
Colin Kaepernick was,
Yeah.
he was what, a football player who,
Football
what is
player,
he
yeah.
known for? I don't follow sports very much.
He's the first one who kneeled.
Is the one- Yes.
He's the first one who kneeled.
Yeah.
It was eventually he eventually was put out of the NFL. Is that so? And it became like a Nike symbol and a symbol of basically like Black Lives Matter.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
controversial. But
That's a big deal, and that's why it was like it can't just be a move like that to make this public. And seeing as you explained this, like it's so much of a bigger deal than it actually seems from just like, oh, this is a dumb decision from the US administration to make this negotiation public, and at the same time, it's like a political decision. We've seen Biden do this for like a few weeks on climate change, and now this, like, it would make sense that he would try to win votes because we're at the second half of 2022. So, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because like it just doesn't feel yeah, like basing it on intuition, it just doesn't feel like Joe Biden announcing that early would be just to increase public pressure in the negotiation, because it's like it just doesn't feel like there's enough energy behind that for that to be significant. Like for the international community to be like, hey, Russia, they're offering you a really good deal. Like they're offering you like 2 criminals who were actually convicted of legitimate charges in exchange for people who you convicted on very minor or potentially totally fraudulent charges. And everyone would be like, oh, that's so unjust. Come on, guys. Like, it feels like it would be more of like a political move for Joe Biden, like an optics type of thing there. And it also kind of explains why isn't there as much urgency? Why hasn't there been as much urgency around Paul Whelan, who's the Marine who was being held, ex-Marine, police officer, who's being held, because I don't know, he didn't seem to have the same level of
Publicity.
And he's a white guy. He's like an old white guy who, was dishonorably discharged from the Marines. And he was in, let me see. Yeah, like he was in prison, in Russian prison for an entire year of the Biden administration, actually, before Brittany Griner was detained. So, because Biden was sworn in late January 2021, Brittany Griner was detained late January 2022.
Yeah.
That whole year, Joe Biden didn't offer to swap one of the US's many, Russian psychopath prisoners.
Yeah,
Paul Whelan. So what the heck? It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
the thing with like diplomacy, prisoners' liberation, or like even presidential grace, like it's always a political move, always. So he had to time it well. Maybe he had other priorities, but now he's definitely considering his priorities in terms of like, okay, I'll have to go again in a presidential election. What do I do?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be necessarily. I think it's like it's a choice, and as much as political parties, as much as people value their political party staying in power, and stuff could be termed strategic, I feel like there's a sense of cynicism with that, and that it's almost, there's a higher prioritization of power than of actually,
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like whatever this is about, like if it's about compassion or if it's about justice, it seems like compassion and justice are more of a lower priority versus like the political contest of like staying in power, you know.
Yeah, for sure. But like what we've seen all around the world, like we've always known a system where like
Yeah.
politics is of higher value. It's like the game of politics as it is now. It just shows that way. And yeah, it's just that, you know.
Yeah,
Isaiah,
in the short term.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Isaiah, are you able to talk? What are your feelings on this?
Hey guys, yeah, sorry I was having internet issues before. But I only heard half of the conversation. Would you be able to catch me up at all? Or I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear basically half of what you guys were saying.
Yeah, so basically we were talking about why the decision of prisoner swap was made public right now, why this timing, and why do people care right now? And it would be explained by the fact that Brittany Gartner had much publicity, and like doing something for her liberation would cater to Black people, which is in favor of like the Black vote for Biden and for Democrats. You know, so we were talking about the game of politics.
Yeah, it's something that I really appreciate. Jeff kind of shared that insight with us that, you know, politics are simple and that there's always really high strategy going on. And honestly, it's something that I needed to be brought into the awareness of, because when he shared that, I was like, wow, I did not think about that. But it's simple, and it's for Biden to get the Black vote. And that makes total sense if you look at it from that perspective. Why this exchange is so different is because that's what's being played out here. That's what he's going for. And you know, I guess that's why there's being more attention and care given to this situation, which is kind of messed up, I guess, because it should be given attention to and catered to no matter what, right?
Right.
But you know, it's a good thing, I think, that this is happening. But I do feel that this is something that should be cared about no matter what. But since it plays into the strategy, it's given even more attention, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially, oh, sorry. Especially since, like, you know, with Paul Whelan, who's in prison before, when Russia was asked to give evidence as to whether Paul Whelan was a spy, they would not provide it. Yeah.
What do you want to say?
I was gonna say, yeah, just think of politics like, you know, advertising for, you know, like a big, like corporate, you know, you need that big celebrity figure that's gonna get you out there, gonna get people known about you. It's like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You wasn't gonna get that with Paul Whelan.
Yeah, and it also depends on what the leader of the executive values, obviously.
Yeah, and the purpose as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But it did, like, as a communication student, I was like, wow, all of this is looking like direct communication. What is going on? You know, everything is communication nowadays with like presidents, obviously, but it was like it felt more communication than diplomacy, negotiation. It didn't feel like it was even addressed to Russia. And so when Jeff said that, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
definitely.
then one thing that made me wonder, the Russian foreign press secretary, all this stuff boggles my mind. I'm like, who is this? Was saying like loudspeaker diplomacy won't get you anywhere, meaning like airing everything out and making it a big public thing. He's saying like, don't do that. But it made me wonder like why? Like why would they respond that way? The discussions are public. Like how does offering a swap publicly before everything is all decided, like why would the Russian government say, oh, don't make the details public, we don't want that? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Isn't that what they've been doing in the past few months to everyone?
No, I don't. No, I'm not sure.
It's like, I don't know, it seems like the same discourse, and it seems like reputation and image to me too. It's like, don't do it, you've been warned.
Because yeah,
I don't
understand what would the motive, why would they not want the swap to be floated publicly?
There could be several reasons. Like, have you considered that it's a show on their part too? Like exactly like Ukraine, like you know what you're doing wrong, but you're still putting on a show. Like the meeting with like the Belarusian president,
Yeah,
Lukashenko. It's all about image, and the other thing is that we're talking about balance of power, and the United States definitely wants to weaken Russia and make them look weak. So Russia is responding that we will not be getting weak, in that balance, that equation. So it's really not a. We gotta let go of the idea that politics is like just random decisions and communications. Most of the time it's calculated. It's calculated to present this image like exactly how the leaders want. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but yeah. Basically it's
like not taking it at face value. Yeah, because it seems like maybe what it feels like is maybe it's more about Russia making the United States look desperate, that they're airing this deal out earlier than when it's all decided, like trying to make them look desperate or something like that. I'm not really sure. But I'm sure that on the Russian media side, they have to tell their story to the Russian public. And so I think they would probably want to highlight that too, that they're like, oh, like, obviously they wouldn't say this, but they're like saying, oh, we can get like the US to hand over a convicted arms dealer and a convicted murderer, just because we detain their citizens for like pretty much no reason. And they're like, yeah, Russia, good for us, that kind of thing, publicly, kind of trying to like publicly, humiliate the US. Not that matters. It doesn't, none of this actually matters except in the calculus of politics. But to me, that's what they would be trying to do. And I'm like,
yeah, there are choices, but they're also like probably very superficial and probably not the core of like the politics that are actually going on at the moment. It's just a decision and it's just a show for votes. So it's for the future, you see, and for power.
Yeah.
All right. So feels like we can go to the next subject, which is healing HIV. And yeah, Sage, when you made your research, like you found like several cases of HIV being cured, definitely in like several parts of the world. Yeah, do you want to tell us more on that too?
Yeah, it was that. So last year, well, I guess more recently, it was reported there was a man who was 66. I think he had a type of cancer. I think it was blood cancer, but I wasn't certain. And he also had HIV for a while, like since 1988. And so, yeah, he had that for a while. And, he had this rare treatment at City of Hope Hospital, kind of in the LA area in California. And so, yeah, he was able to overcome his both issues with one treatment. Because what this was, it was a blood stem cell treatment. This is kind of foreign to me. Like, I didn't know too much about it, but I do know that that's what they used. So this can be used for apparently overcoming types of cancer and also overcoming HIV. Yeah, which is cool. And so, yeah, science has been able to cure that with this treatment. The reason it's not very common because it's kind of a rare, risky treatment at this point. And yeah, possibly maybe reflective of people just beginning to claim their power, over and kind of heal the whole stigma around HIV. You know what I mean? And beginning to let go of all of this kind of condemnatory narrative of, oh, HIV, it's like a life sentence or it's a death sentence. And to me, the feeling of it was it read so much of this stigma, this shame, this, this guilt or bad feeling around HIV because it was branded as being like such a sexually transmitted disease. That's not the only way that it can be transmitted, but it was like this big image of being that, like, God's punishment for, wrong sexuality, whatever you might call it. That's why the gay community and trans community, but the gay community was so targeted when AIDS became a thing. And so it feels like now that stigma is people are overcoming it, people are claiming their power back, and this guy got this cure that's rare because it's risky, and that worked out for him. And so that was this year. And then last year, late last year, there was an Argentinian woman. She was called the Esperanza patient. And she was from Esperanza, Argentina. And that means hope in Spanish, which is interesting because there's like hope in both of these, stories. The word pops up. And she was found to be cured of HIV just by her own, apparently, like just by her own immune system. Like her body looked at HIV and it was like, your time is up, and annihilated it, which is completely possible. And to me, that's even more so. That's like an example of someone being like, no, I'm not going to be like a victim of this disease. I'm not going to be branded by this, whatever it is, this guilt, or shame of HIV. I'm going to overcome it. And my body is just going to kick this virus out and evict it from the premises. So I think it's awesome. Do you guys have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's awesome too. Did you?
Yeah. Going back on what Sage just said, it's the thing is, it's great that we're hearing that these stories about people are overcoming it, but what people aren't like focusing on is that it is a risky transplant stem cell treatment, meaning that if something happens after, like, you know, so it's kind of like a hit or miss. So that's the thing. Like it's good. It's really great to hear like these stories, but that's just the thing. It's a risky treatment that these people are getting. They're like volunteering for this kind of thing. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
true.
those are my thoughts on it right now.
Yeah, true. It's like I think only 10 people in the world have gotten this and being cured completely. Yeah, basically, obviously, it's a risky treatment, but that's also like they volunteered, and that's also how science, like, you know, is advancing is by testing and growing stronger and stronger. And I like the first time I heard of an HIV patient being cured, like I felt so much hope. And it's funny that hope came back there. And it's like hope that there is like you can heal, like you can truly heal of any disease. And we just need like evolution and patience and trust, you know. So yeah, obviously like it's there's a risky side, but I think as humans we like to be hopeful and have this good news of like, you know, success and trust. And yeah, I also wanted to hear Isaiah's point of view on it. Like you said it was like a good step toward freedom and like worthiness. That's right.
I think it's amazing and it's cool, but because it shows that like a new choice is being made in consciousness. You know, there's a choice that has to be made, and the choice has been made. It's been made to like we're gonna heal, like we're gonna heal this. You know, we're gonna decide that we are worthy of love, and you know these people being cured and treatments are now popping up. Although, like you said, Deji, it is definitely risky and it's rare. Like you have to have, I think it was a certain bone marrow type. Is that? I'm not sure if that's correct, but
I'm not
is
sure.
that right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's like you have to have these certain qualification, or maybe it was a certain recessive gene to have this treatment in the first place. Is that right?
It's actually it's so intricate. It's like, so the stem cells come from the bone marrow of people, and the donor, the person who is giving the stem cells has to have this gene that makes them resistant to HIV. Yeah, it's so interesting. So you take the stem cells, and it's somebody else's stem cells, so maybe that's why it's risky, because it's their body, but their stem cells in them, they have this gene that says, like, fuck off HIV, like you're gonna die. So it's taking that. And so, but the person's body can accept it or reject it, I bet. So they would have to be choosing to heal, I think. Because yeah, interesting, huh?
Choice for that individual to decide that they like, or they choose to heal their HIV. But I think it's truly amazing just that this is happening and it's popping up. And it also shows that there's just so much, I feel there's like so much that stem cell, this research and this treatment can do. And we've been hearing about it for a while, right? But to see that there's something happening now, although it's risky and it's rare, but that some people have been cured of HIV cancer viruses. So I think it's amazing, you know, and there's only more of this that can.
Oh,
And
okay.
there's a new choice being made there, a choice to love there instead, you know.
Yeah, I do think so as well. And like just
Another
let's just
thing,
think. Oh, sorry.
yeah, I
Um,
was gonna say another thing I wanted to say is that I don't think that uh that the stigma surrounding HIV is predominantly projected at the LGBTQ community anymore, only because you know, there are some straight celebrities and well-known figures out there who have, you know, this disease. For example, you know, Magic Johnson, he has this. He's had this since like the '90s, early '90s, and he's like an advocate for you know, for HIV. So I wouldn't say like it's all just in the gay community. Yeah, that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say on that.
obviously, yeah, but I'm still seeing like HIV awareness, especially in like the gay and transgender community. So I feel like there's still a wound there, you know. That could probably be like some healing to be done about all the stigma.
Oh yes,
And
absolutely,
also
yeah.
the fact that a lot of like representative of this community have lost friends and partners to this disease, and it's a very real thing for many people that are alive today in these communities. So yeah, I think that might be why it's you know, the awareness is like often like shared through their voice. And I think maybe it's only natural because of the things that they had to endure. But yeah, just to go through a timeline, like in the 80s, like 80s,
The
it was
80s.
discovered. And yeah, obviously like they had a really hard time like with society and also with like their own bodies and with no cures. And then medicine was invented to help them. And at first it was also risky. Then it became like more stable and people are able to live a normal life today because of that. And then there was this like still through like the 2010s and nowadays there's still like these campaigns of awareness about HIV because a lot of people still have stigmas
You're
around it.
you're forgetting
So
about the '90s. You probably aren't aware of this, but
yeah.
the African American community in the '90s were affected by the HIV virus as well. If you there's actually a segment, it's actually a segment on this on a very old Oprah Winfrey episode when you know when she had her own talk show. She was speaking on this. This is where Magic Johnson was talking about what happened after he revealed his status and things like that. And also, you know, there was this African American rapper. You probably don't know him. He's from the '90s. His name is Eazy-E. He had HIV and died of AIDS. He caught it really quickly. And am I forgetting anybody? I won't take up too much time. I think that's all. That's all that's coming to mind right now. But yeah, in the '90s, it hit the African American community like really hard. I can't speak for I can't speak for the Caucasian community though. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, it was basically like all LGBTQ in France, like a lot. We didn't have that wave of like African American because we're not African American, obviously. But yeah, that's interesting. But we're still looking at an evolution and not an evolution for like health and like a social impact and change in mentalities and also a spiritual change. And so it feels good to see that we're on this like positive curve, I would say. And And yeah, obviously, like, to see like our parents were alive to see like the beginning of this thing, and to see that throughout their lifetime there are like positive changes. I think it's super important and super symbolic. So yeah. You muted, Sage.
Yeah. And I think that too, it's really cool and it's noteworthy. It's important to say that, like, AIDS is never, I don't think it's never been like this. Obviously, like, this could be obvious to many, but I think in society, it's important to point out that it was never just like an LGBTQ disease. And it was never just a disease of people who were marginalized and, to whom society directs stigma. That was never true. And it was always a disease that anyone is equally susceptible to based on, what happens in their life or choices or whatever. And that it's not just, something limited to certain communities or LGBTQ. It's collective, and it's this collective block of whatever the disease represents, in the psyche of humanity, like whether it's attack or a punishment or a stigma or shame or guilt, perhaps surrounding sexuality or surrounding who you are as a person, and truly accepting yourself and being authentic to who you are. Because these things, like these fears of the stigma and the guilt and the shame, these things, like, they routinely, the marginalization, it gets projected, because everyone has this, everyone is moving through this as a collective, whether they're aware or not, is healing that. And there's been a tendency to project onto people who are seen as other, like the gay community, being like, oh, it's a gay disease, God's punishment, when A, God doesn't punish, B, there's nothing lesser about any community, and C, we all have this upset to heal with ourselves, and we're all on this journey together. And I just wanted to point that out. And it's important too, because like with monkeypox too, like I know in certain parts of the world, at least, there was some, people were saying, oh, it's a gay disease, or, it's like I remember seeing in India too, there was like a poster up saying like, stay away from hijras. It's like a term for transgender women. Like, stay away from them because you will get, I think actually it was COVID. Like COVID was being like put onto the queer community. And that's not an issue that is localized there. It's everywhere. People try to scapegoat and project and be like, oh, it's not me. It's not me. And I'm like, no, it is. And we can all heal this. We're together in this.
Yeah, it was like society's projection of the queer community being promiscuous and just, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Oh, you're bringing up such a good point, and I think I've never heard of one disease that is in our world right now, like exclusive to a group. It's basically impossible today, and that's what COVID demonstrated. There's probably like, I don't know if you guys know about drepanocytosis. I don't even know if it's called that in English, but it's basically more prominent in like Black communities than others, but it's not.
Wait, what is it called?
Drepanocytosis. Not sure of the word in English, so.
Wait, how do you spell it?
No, I'm not spelling
You're dealing
that.
with like a cross-linguistic thing now. It
Oh
was
my God.
like trypanosomiasis.
Trypanosomiasis.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, it's sleeping sickness caused by the parasites in the tsetse fly.
That's
It-
not it. That's not this disease.
That's not it.
That's not it. No. But yeah, French Caribbean and French Black people, like this disease is said to be more prominent, but it's not exclusive to the group. And that's the only thing I know of. That's the only example I know of, like disease exclusivity, and it's not even that. So it's important to know that it's not yeah, you I forgot what I wanted to say. Whatever. My next point is that it's probably bringing up a lot of feelings still for LGBTQ communities and Black communities. And it's funny because it was part of HERE, which is former LGBTQ and Black Lives Matter. But it's like we also have to heal and see that there is no stigma to our skin color or our sexuality. And there is nothing that could make us be less than others, less lovable or something. And it's important to note, and I think the more we're gonna heal that, like the more like people are gonna even probably drop this insanity of trying to blame every new disease on a group of people, So yeah, I think it's an important healing for us too. It's like COVID is not from Chinese people and HIV is not from LGBTQ people, and it's not that. It's not that. We're all affected the same because we're all humans and we all could have this disease. And this disease is whatever. You understand my point, right? I can't speak English anymore. I'm sorry.
Okay, okay, just to backtrack. Are you speaking
No.
about last question? Are you speaking about the disease that was known in the African Sahara? That one?
African what?
He was in the Sahara, he was saying.
In the Sahara.
In
Yeah.
the innocent era?
The Sahara Desert.
Sahara.
Sahara. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't
Never
know
mind.
the origin of
we'll
that
drop
thing.
it. We'll drop
But it's a
it.
blood disease, and it's a deformation of it's an anomaly of your blood cells. Like they become
no.
they become like solid instead of supple, and it hurts, and basically it makes your blood not be circulating normally in the body.
I'm not sure what
Are
you're
you talking about sickle cell?
Sickle cell anemia.
Sickle what?
Sickle cell.
Sickle cell anemia.
Sickle cell? We're gonna do our research
We'll do
after
our
this live.
Sickle cell is a sickness that is well known in the Haitian community.
It's like it's an African type of, but it's not just African. Anywhere where malaria was historically prominent, malaria. So some Southern Italians, and I imagine Greeks and stuff, anywhere where there was malaria, sickle cell anemia was an adaptation. So that's like a hereditary disease. So it's not spread. Whereas what you were saying, the trypanosomiasis, it's the sleeping sickness spread by this fly that bites you.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Right. And anyone can get trypanosomiasis because the fly comes, unless your body says no to it, and you're just like, no, boundary, to the fly.
I was talking about drepanocytosis. Usually it translates well, this type of diseases from French to English, but no, and actually not in this case. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
We're gonna do our research.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God. Well, Yeah, feels like the end of our discussion, folks. Do you
Yeah.
feel good?
Um,
Or do you have any last words about HIV and cures? No? Feeling good? All right. Well, this was our second Harmony Live discussion. Thank you to everyone who watched this with us. And if you're watching from YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe to see more of this discussion on the news and on the media in the next few weeks. And yeah, have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.